Milicic is obviously a man who sticks to his ideology, and as does Alan Stajic. But I just think the tactics that the Mariners employ against us and other counter-attacking teams, we're finding it hard to deal with at the moment.
We don't have we don't have a grub in midfield. We need a guy with a bit of cunt about him.
Exactly.
There's foul people.
Exactly. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Bull Banter, the podcast where two brothers from the Southwest talk about the Macarthur Bulls, A-League, and all things football. You're joined by myself, Blake Sims, and as always, my brother Daniel. How are you, Dan?
Good as ever, and ready to go. And guys, one more thing just before we get into this one. Be sure to check out our social medias, Instagram and Facebook, Bull Banter, and bullbanter.com. You can check that out as well. We've got some good stuff up there, and you can just stay in touch with all the content we'll be releasing over the coming weeks.
Yeah, mate, top-notch plug there, top-notch plug. Let's jump into all the action. So unfortunately, all we have to talk about this week is kind of negative stuff. It's not what we like to do, but when you look at the results, what really can you say? But we still have to do it. We have to go through the losses and try and pick apart maybe ways we can improve, because, you know, we all want to see the boys succeed. So last Monday up in Gosford, we went up, Dan and I, as well as a few diehard supporters there from the Bullpen and a couple others here and there. And unfortunately, what we were treated to was a bit of a shock. It was a shock performance, really. Like, obviously, Central Coast being on top of the ladder, you're expecting them to put up a really good fight. But you had a sense that because of the way we had played against Sydney, there was a bit of momentum maybe gaining in the Bulls, and that we'd be able to take a bit of vengeance on Central Coast for the previous 2-0 loss. But really what ended up happening was a night of just decisions maybe going against us, the run of play going against us, key moments going against us. Daniel, what did you see in the match?
Yeah, going into the game, I thought, like, my spirits were high, thinking we would have learned from last time out against them. And obviously games such as the Western United game, sorry. I thought that we would have known what to expect, especially from the Mariners, given the way that they like to play. And we sort of just played right into their palm, I'd say.
Yeah, we didn't really adjust. I think Milicic is obviously a man who sticks to his ideology, and as does Alan Stajic. But I just think the tactics that the Mariners employ against us and other counter-attacking teams, we're finding it hard to deal with at the moment. And I think, yes, on the one hand, you have to stick to what you've been doing this entire time in order to make sure that the cohesion of the team stays in. Everything you've been working for has not just been for nothing. But there also needs to be that flexibility when we're up against it. I think earlier in the game, and we have these periods every single game where we're flat, and we started completely flat. The first 10, Mariners looked like they were going to have a field day with us. And they actually went up early through a deflected Matt Simon strike. Now, you can call that bad luck, which it absolutely was. But what you can't question is that Mariners came out firing much better than us. And that's something we really need to fix. We usually fade into that 10-minute block where we're doing nothing. But to start that way is really not good enough. You could chalk it up to the schedule. You could chalk it up to just, thinking, oh, well, we've got this, we're calm and collected, we'll play our possession game. But if you don't turn up in those sort of aggressive physical challenges, you're going to be second best to every ball. And we were in that first 10, and it paid dividends for the Mariners.
Yeah, and Mariners, they came out firing, obviously, for the home fans. They want to put on a show for them. And when you see Matt Simon just giving back heels left, right, and centre, something's a bit up.
Yeah, he was allowed a bit too much space, and he's a tricky player. He's one of a kind in a way, because he's that kind of player who is ultra physical and knows how to sort of get under the skin of the opposition, knows how to push things a little bit, but can also come up with those little uncanny flicks, and is popping up in the right positions, knows how to create a bit of space. But we were giving him too much respect. initially, and that's what
Yeah,
really led to the goal.
I think the main thing we saw is just like obviously these other teams in the league. I think it all just comes down to the cohesion that we don't have yet, and that'll come with time. But you just see how well Mariners move together. They know where they need to be, how each player likes to receive the ball. Like they already know what is going to happen before it unfolds, and we're sort of lacking that, which it'll come with time. But just seeing the way some of these teams play in the league, like you can tell, well, from my perspective, that we're not there yet.
Yeah,
And obviously we have a lot of room to grow, but
you can tell that Stajic has his team set up really well defensively, and that, you know, under the radar across the last couple of years where they were suffering defeat after defeat, they were building to something. They were getting well drilled and knowing the personality of the players, and it's something we'll touch on a little bit later. It's hard to build that so quickly, and so we were always going to have a low point in the season. We were going to have a few results go against us just because of that. I think up until this point in the season, we were batting above our weight, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see how we go forward. But it was good to see at least a response after the dropping of the goal. So after that concession, we clicked into gear. We were able to get our possession game going a bit more. But again, we couldn't really do much with it. The Mariners set up in this way where they just coerced us to the sideline. They know that we want to generate the forward momentum from our wing backs, work it wide to sort of the halfway line, and then have that pass into midfield, a quick 1-2, and we're on our way. That's how we want to play. But because the Mariners were just constricting us on that one side, they were pretty much gambling and saying, okay, I bet you guys can't, you know, work it around or out wide on the other side with a switch or something like that as quickly as we can get across to you. And that was right, because again, that sluggish build-up play comes from that lack of cohesion that you were talking about.
yeah.
So, yes, that defensive setup that the Mariners were able to employ kept us down the sideline. It kept it so whenever McGing got it or James Meredith got it on the other side, it was too crowded, and so there was no midfield ball on. You know, why else would the midfield not be getting the ball down?
Yeah, something we definitely saw, it just the movement and the offering from the mids in the first half definitely was lacking. And whenever we looked to go down the sides on the pitch, it just looked like we were outnumbered, like 6-4 or something by the Mariners. Like felt honestly like they had an extra man on the pitch, just because we're talking about it during the game, and Poyo just seemed a little bit sort of lazy and not getting to spaces to receive the ball as fast as he probably should have and can. And it just didn't enable us to open it up for the rest of the team. And because our midfield was so lazy, like we were repeatedly just going right back to left back, working around the back. And we've said it all season long, we struggle moving it into that final third where we can sort of get stuff going. Yeah. But when you can't even move it into the middle third, then like that's trouble. And that was the first half for us.
Pretty much, yeah. The defensive setup of the Mariners really negated our style of play. And so what you saw, as Daniel said, was just the moving of back and forth around the back line until we inevitably kicked it long or tried that risky pass into midfield. And then it was often kind of not a counter, but a clear possession switch over, because the Mariners just had us pinned where they wanted us and baited us effectively into that style of play.
Yeah, and because we weren't really ticking in the first half either, I don't think Derbyshire touched the ball once in the first half. Like when he finally did get a couple of touches, I remember he had a pretty difficult like chest down of the ball of a long ball from like McGing or something like that. But like when he's receiving ball like that and not to his feet, like there's not much he can do. But we just couldn't get him the ball in that first half.
Yeah. And so, you know, they go into the sheds at halftime, and it's a bit disappointing from a Macarthur perspective. I'm sure Milicic tells them, go out there, switch it up, be a bit more inventive, be a bit more assertive, attacking minded. Don't just rely on possession for possession's sake, because we're behind. We've got to go for this game. And what you ended up seeing then in the second half when they came out was Benyat dropped a bit deeper. He was able to receive the ball off of that wing back and then do a quick switch of the play. And usually Societa or were able to get onto it and get into an effective, crossing scenario. Now, with that, that's still pretty one-dimensional play, because even though we can get them into better areas after figuring out after half a game how to get into our midfield, when we're in attack, it's a whole different story. That's a whole nother challenge. We've got Derbyshire, who's, usually going to have two centre-backs on him anyway, so he's outnumbered. And our only style of play once we get into that final third seems to be knock it around until we got a crossing situation and then whip it in. And, Derbyshire's good, but he can't always overcome that man advantage. And he was marshalled really well by the likes of Ruan Toniuk and Kai Rolls. He just starved of the ball. And, maybe we could get the winger on the other side to get in there on that back post and maybe cause a bit more trouble. But it's just not working for us. We're too one-dimensional trying to get those crosses into Derbyshire. It's too easy for opposition defences.
Yeah, we saw a few times in the second half at least where we were able to run at their defence with numbers. But then again, we struggled converting it into a goal-scoring opportunity more often than not. I thought when Roos came on at left wing, I thought he gave us a bit of energy that we were certainly lacking, which is good to see. But then again, we're repeatedly just not getting into those situations where we can get a shot off, or we're getting too frustrated and then going for a hopeful outside the box shot that just gets blocked or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Definitely. I liked Roos when he came on. He was very strong on the ball, and I think against tired legs in a later part of the game, he can be very effective. He definitely put himself out there as someone who's maybe deserving of more minutes off the bench. But, in saying that, we still got to go through the other goal. Unfortunately, Benyat caught in possession deep in our half. They were able to quickly put Qual through, who put it on a plate for Matt Hatch, who was able to score on his debut. Happy for the lad. But
20 seconds after he came on, I think.
I know, it's just uncanny. Pretty disappointing from our perspective. You wouldn't expect Benyat to get dispossessed so easily there. And, following the goal, you could see he was doing, the thing was hitting in his head, saying, I should have done that.
But he was trying to, drag back and then, backheel it to... was it Meredith play left back?
Would have
for
been
us
behind him,
night? Yeah, he was trying to flick it behind his leg, and then it was a bit sloppy.
Yeah. So he was very
probably
culpable for that goal.
Probably brain fade a bit, but
bit of a brain fade. And then we'll see that, unfortunately for him, he would have been someone you earmarked as one of our main players. He's a marquee for us, essentially. And he did it again against City, which we'll go through as well. But yeah, disappointing to see there. I think he's just, obviously Spain's a higher quality league, the La Liga that he came from. But I don't know, something about the aggressiveness of Australia, of, not just remaining in defensive structures, but actually really pressing.
He's probably
maybe it's something he's
obviously in Spain, he's playing with better players as well. So
very true. Maybe he feels the responsibility too much to hold on to it and try and do everything, and it's leading to him to make mistakes. But it's something you wouldn't have expected at the start of the season, seeing Benyat be dispossessed quite easily in situations that should have been dealt with better. But in saying that, there were some positives to come out of this match, much more than the City match. Markel Societa, I thought he was tireless. He was dropping into space and making these really intricate, diverse runs in behind that often weren't tracked by defenders, but also weren't rewarded with a delivery from our midfield or our back line. And, you saw on the pitch, he became visibly frustrated at not being able to be put through on several occasions. But in saying that, he didn't drop his head either. Often you look in the A-League at some foreigners who are here and they're, playing with sometimes other players who are below their caliber. And when they realized that, they stopped trying as hard because they're like, oh, well, he's not going to reward my work, so I'm not going to put in the work. But Sociedad kept turning up, and that was a really good thing for us. I think if people can get on the end of those runs he's making and be aware of them, we'll get rewarded in the future with that. And as you said as well, like Rus, when he came on, he was a handful for the defenders, despite the lack of final product.
Yeah, it's touching on Sociedad again. Like obviously, he's doing all those good runs, like getting on the shoulder of the defender, and then just because we couldn't get it ticking in our center midfield there, it kept having to drop back deep, which then doesn't give us that outlet out wide because he's having to come and like command the ball, like rather than relying on his teammates to do their job properly and move it and find him out wide in space, high and wide. Then he's pulled out of position. We saw him a few times, like all the way over on the left side of the field, trying to just get something going for us, which is frustrating. But yeah, if we can obviously improve in that aspect, then get a bit of energy in the midfield, which we saw with Genre when he came on, which I think he should have played the full 90, even though they're trying to limit minutes so that injuries or whatever. But yeah, definitely need to have him starting each game, I think.
Yeah, Genre gives us that spark in midfield that we were definitely lacking. And like we said before, Puyo was too lazy, and it was a good idea for Milicic to get him off and put Genre on. But also something I noticed as well, and we don't want to bash the fella. We love Lockie Rose on this podcast, but you have to say that he had a bit of an out of sorts performance starting against Central Coast. Didn't really get on the ball too much. When he did in an attacking third, he looked dangerous, even though he didn't have the final product there. And you know, it's just going to take a bit of time with him. There was one moment that I heard from the sideline where we had a chance to do a quick counter. Federici had it, picked it up, and every Central Coast player was forward. And he looked to release Lockie, thinking he'd be, speedster getting up in behind, but he had fallen back too deep. And he yelled out to Lockie, "Come on, Lockie, you're useless there." And it's probably just a sign of Lachlan Rose having to adjust to the tactics and positioning his role requires at a professional level. We don't want to slag him off. It does take time, and we're all rooting for him. But it's just something I picked up from watching it on the sideline there.
Plus, a lot of the time when he receives the ball in space anyway, he's not receiving the ball behind the defense. He's receiving it in front of the defense. So then he has to run at players, get past them, then do something with it, which more often than not is asking a bit too much of anyone in the league. Yeah. And obviously, if he's not the way, obviously Mariners were defending, getting like 3 or 4 guys surrounding the ball, if we can't work it back through to like our midfield, which was missing, then he's sort of forced to go into those one-on-one situations, which unfortunately he didn't get the better of for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, we can't pin the loss on him at all. Like, it was a breakdown in our midfield, and then our attacking play wasn't there because of that. Having said that, I don't think our style of play necessarily suits him. And I don't mean that as a slight on him as a player. I just think he'd be far better suited to a team that wanted to maybe sit deep and then counter, where he could use his pace in behind a bit better. We don't seem to do that. We seem to prefer, under Milicic, this slow, methodical build-up where your back is often to goal and it's a quick, intricate 1-2 and then you're through, or you make a little space, you whip in across. I don't think that's Lockie's go. I think he's much more suited, especially as an impact player late in the half, when we can go, okay, let's bomb it long and let him get on to the end of it. Because he does have that pace to burn, and he has that skill to be able to get in that position and to beat players. But to ask him to consistently beat a player from receiving it pretty much just after the halfway line it's putting too much attacking onus on the young lad. It's too much to ask for him at this stage in his career. Yeah. But he could develop into that kind of player. We've just got to give him the time. Moving on to our unfortunate, diabolical even 3-0 loss away to Melbourne City. Let's get through this one quick because this was painful. I would say that they hurt us through mostly Naboo, Noon, and McLaren, but across the field they were better than us.
Yep.
Naboo and Golek, it was a bit of a mismatch to say the least. And what we saw was Golek at least realized it and did what he could. He didn't rush out because he knew Naboo with his pace and strength was likely to skin him. So he dropped back in a lot of instances when City were in an attacking posture and became almost a third centre back and pulled Roos, who was playing ahead of him, back. Now, that is also a mismatch because you have Andrew Naboo and Nathaniel Atkinson, who've essentially got Michael Roos as their plaything. Yeah. One defender against two, obviously a mismatch. And then you have, when he's pulling back that far, obviously he's going to be gassed because he's been making forward runs, sprinting forward, doing all the attack, and then he's got to defend as well. Mismatch. You saw him culpable for the first goal where he didn't track Atkinson's didn't track his run to make the cross. You can't put that all on him because he's not a defensive player. I don't know if it was a tactical thing from Milicic to say, look, just let him have it out wide and let him cross it in and we'll deal with it when it comes into the box. But it just simply didn't work. They were able to get McLaren on the end of things. He's so diminutive and just in the right spot at all times in the box there. And yeah, from the other goals too, like it was just fast play. They did what we should have done against Central Coast and were unable to. They just moved the ball so quickly. They cut us to shreds, mate.
Yeah, that first half was embarrassing to say the least. I was sitting in the pub thinking I'm going to need a few more beers now, but yeah, just outgunned and outclassed by City. And obviously, like you said, with our left side of the field sort of taking that defensive stance, it just invites pressure. And but all over the park, really, they looked like they always had acres of space, always getting men in behind. Yeah.
Yeah, Milicic came out post-game and said that City are the benchmark in terms of quality football. I think, in a way, Milicic is aiming for us to be in the same ilk as Melbourne City. Now, Melbourne City obviously have the resources, the funds, the facilities, and had the time that we have just not had to implement that play style to the highest level. With someone as strong and quick and good with his feet as Andrew Naboo and someone as, technical as Craig Noon as your wingers, you can do all of that, but it's across the board. They were able to quickly move the ball. I mean, let's look deeper into our second goal that we conceded. It was Naboo on the halfway line, actually running backwards towards his own goal. And you're thinking, okay, he's done. Like, I've sent him home. As a defender, you're thinking he's done. He can't go anywhere. He can't really do anything. And because of the way we had set up, we almost tried to implement a bit of Central Coast squeezing in that particular instance, that section of play, and it simply didn't work. What we had was Naboo drops back in, was able to curl out a ball to Roston Griffiths. Roston Griffiths plays a 1-2 with a midfielder, which drags one of our midfielders out of the way. And it's a slide rule pass, perfect through ball for Noon, who put it on a plate for, I believe it was McLaren. And he couldn't miss from there. That, in the space of 5 passes, it would take us 100 to get into a crossing situation. They've made into a definite goal scoring situation. And that comes down to knowing who's going to run where and when, knowing, if I bounce this guy, I know that space is there and he's going to automatically know to run there next. We simply do not have that yet. And it's something to aim towards. I definitely think that Melbourne City just taught us a lesson and we need to learn from it.
Yeah. What was it? It was the 34th minute and they're already up 3-0. And obviously the week before, they crossed the line against Melbourne Victory.
6 times.
6 times.
So they're no slouches. Maybe 3-0. Yeah. You can't say it's a good result. I'm sorry. You can't say it's a good result. But I don't know.
In hindsight, 34th minute, I'm thinking, fuck, we're going to get dusted 8-0 here the way we're playing.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, going forward in the second half, what did we have? We had 2 shots on target, and like
Yeah, we looked anemic in attack,
the
and it's a
best
problem
chance of the
that's
game
yeah,
was Lockie Rose putting one at the near post for Genre, and he still didn't hit the target on it. It just by a whisker missed the goalpost. But like, what's happening? Like, come on.
I think with the run of games we had, the disappointing result against the Mariners on Monday, Milicic probably picked it wrong. Not in terms of personnel, but in terms of tactics. Going against Melbourne City for 90 minutes, just going, show us your best shot defensively, lining up like that. It's inviting all that pressure onto you. It's inviting them to do what they like to do best, which is possess, build up, bounce pass, and then in behind. We were never, I think, with that strategy, without taking it to them a bit more, we weren't going to withstand it. So I think maybe the coach got it wrong a little bit there. But yeah, it's very disappointing. In saying that, we also dug our own grave a little bit. For the third goal, we had that. We didn't, we had our possession here and there, not in the same way we usually like to have it, but we had parts of the game where we still had possession and we could do something with it if we wanted to. But because of the way we like to play, we have our high line, our high posture, where everyone is practically in the attacking half when we have the ball. Benyat got robbed of it just on his blind side, just outside the center circle in the attacking half. And, we're exposed. Our wing backs are obviously on the sideline. We've got 2 center backs, and, Benyat getting robbed there, that's a recipe for disaster. We talked about Benyat maybe not being able to move it or taking too much onus. Whatever the issue is, it's happened twice now in 2 games. I think that sides who studied us and know a bit about how we play now have probably gambled on, our slow build-up being a bit of an asset to them, where they can go, okay, if we squeeze them or we try and press in a certain situation, we know they're not going to try and release a quick ball in behind because we don't have the personnel necessarily, and we don't have the will to go forward like that. We want to, work it wide, work it into a crossing situation, and then whip it in. What do you think about, the way teams set up to defend against us?
Well, like we've said repeatedly throughout this entire podcast, we're just not good enough at creating those chances in the final third. And if teams know that, which they obviously will, when all our goals are coming from, for the most part, these hopeful crosses for Derbyshire in the 6-yard box, they know, like, oh, we can probably overcommit here because they're not going to hurt us going the other way, even if we're outnumbered and they're hitting us on the counter. Like,
yeah,
we can overextend ourselves and get away with it. That's probably the way other teams are coming at us.
Yeah, we invite that pressure on ourselves because of our slow play. I mean, if we were putting balls in behind, really making defenses run instead of just kind of jog around, they would be a bit more wary about stepping out of line against us. But, teams make that gamble of going, okay, when the ball goes into the midfield, if we just crowd this guy, even if he gets it to our attacker's not then like Derbyshire, he's not turning and dribbling past players. He's going to be a bounce back to the midfield. And so they have that time to recover, or it's worked out wide and they still have that time to recover. So they're gambling on us just doing that, and it's paying off for them because, pretty much once a game, if not more, you're seeing midfield loses the ball. Oh, it's panic stations. It's, their attack against our defense and we're stranded. And often we're relying on Federici to come up with a good save.
And how many times in the last 2 games or even 3 games, including the Sydney FC game, did you see one of our midfielders receive the ball, turn on it and start running at the defense? Like, obviously Genre has that in his locker, but I feel like we just don't see it enough from him, of him being able to get into those spaces in the midfield and then run it.
Particularly, I agree with what you're saying, particularly that space in between the defensive line of the opposition midfield and their back line. that's where he can operate the best. If he can receive the ball there and dribble, it draws players out of position. It allows our runners to be where they need to be and get into that space. And, you beat one player and suddenly you're in on goal there. But getting him the ball there is a different story, because often he has to drop back too and play that sort of deeper central midfield role. Our midfield is where the issues lie, which I didn't think I would be saying really at this point in the season.
On paper, you think like we're sorted there. It's just up front, but then up front, Derbyshire is just carrying us completely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, defense, we actually go okay. It's just the posture of the team and the way we're trying to play doesn't set us up well for keeping goals out. Like, I'm sorry. It's just our line's too high. We're trying too hard to have this possession style of game, and we don't have the players to, we don't have a solid, strong defensive midfielder. That kind of presence of a Granit Xhaka or, Nigel Jeong, if you're passing your mind back in memory. Someone who's just a commander, and we don't have that. We have a lot of, decent ball players who...
We don't have we don't have a grub in midfield. Like, we need a guy with a bit of cunt about him.
Exactly.
There's foul people.
Exactly.
And just put it on him. First, minute 1, get yellow. And then
show them you're
let
there.
him know.
Yeah. Don't take the ball off my midfielders, because I'll kill you. All right.
Yeah.
But we've got to deal with what we have, at least until the transfer window. I wanted to bring up this idea of maybe the lack of cohesion being down to language. In teams who've had this amount of time, you look at Western United, they obviously have immense talent in the likes of Diamanti, and last year they had Panagiotis Kone as well, who were sort of carrying them in midfield, and they sort of look to have sorted out their mids. But do you think it's down to language? Because, Puyo pretty much only communicates in French. He knows a little bit of English, but mostly French. Jeannot knows English and French. And you can see Jeannot and Puyo connecting, stringing the passes well together. They're bouncing off each other well. It's kind of what you want to see between your midfielders. And then in the same way, you have Beñat and Sicilieta, who are obviously Spanish. And even though Sicilieta is more, we think of him as a winger, he does have that free reign, that license that Milicic gives him to go where he needs to go to pick up the ball and be dangerous. And you see them connect like, they have always been playing together, and that's because they have. Like, simply, they've played hundreds of games together. They have that connection. So do you think, Daniel, that, apart from those two combinations, the rest of them aren't really on the same wavelength? I haven't seen it, for a full 90 minutes. I haven't seen them, have that passing connection, knowing where someone else is going to be. And I think that might be down to the language barrier. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because obviously we're not in the dressing room. We don't know how much, the extent to which language is an issue, whether or not Milicic uses the likes of John Rowe or whoever to sort of communicate through to then talk to Puyo or whatever, or whether he's got translators or whatever part of the squad with other assistant coaches or whatever.
From what I'm aware of, I think Jeannot does a lot of that with Puyo particularly, but for Beñat and Sicilieta, I mean, how do you get that across? Even if you have a translator, like, they come from the Basque country. It's not like they're speaking completely, regular Spanish.
I don't think they're too bad with English anyway, so I don't think they're an issue.
All right, maybe I'm just speculating too much. No, call me an asshole. It's fine.
They know how to order red wine. They know how to order medium rare ribeye.
In English.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, they came in then. Sorry, I'm just speculating too much.
No, they came into work once, so
it'll come good. It'll come good.
But yeah, I think it just goes back to what I said earlier in the show. It's just the cohesion, and sort of, we try to have this identity, but is it the way that the whole team wants to play? Even like, are they starting to think like, oh, it's not working, but we can't change it? Like, is it just sort of,
are we forcing things? Are we forcing things just to stick to an ideology when in the A-League it might be better for, especially with the personnel we have to switch it up a little bit. I don't know. We'll see if Milicic sticks to his ideology. I think he will. But if the results aren't there to justify it, then you have to ask the question. We'll see how we go, though. I'm pretty confident that he'll be able to, by the end of the season at least, have us playing decent football and getting those results.
One more thing I wanted to touch on here before we move on to Macarthur member deals. I saw this interesting article that said almost 70% of A-League players are without a deal for next season. And right. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, whether or not it's just down to COVID and whether clubs are sort of keeping their cards close to their chest. But Macarthur, I think, is one of the highest teams with players that aren't signed on for next season. So I'll just run through here because it's about half of our team.
Yeah.
Benyat, Franic, Golek, Charles Mbabwa, Martis, McGing, Meredith, Yanni Nicolau, Miloslav Popovic, who we haven't been able to see in action yet.
Yep.
Poyo, Liam Rose, Michael Roos, Walter Scott, Nick Schumann, Sisayada, and Sujna do not have deals for next season yet.
Right. So well, that's an extensive list, and that's a
almost
bit of a problem.
Of our starting 11.
Yeah, almost all of our starting 11. Now,
I think a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams are in the same boat, to be fair. But
yeah, no, it's true. I mean,
yeah.
Zooming out from Macarthur FC for a minute, there's obviously a problem with the league in terms of finances. Attendances through COVID have been down. Not that they were great to begin with, even before COVID hit. Viewing numbers have been down. We don't know necessarily how much of an impact, streaming services have had because they don't release those numbers. But I doubt that it's actually made up for the numbers that have left, the likes of Foxtel. Foxtel did us a bit dirty as well, like the league itself, in terms of because of COVID and because of the restrictions around it at the time, the league wasn't able to play all of their matches before a June 30th deadline about a TV deal that was coming up. And in the contract, there's a clause for unforeseen circumstances, which you could definitely see COVID as being, that would make the contract null and void. And so A-League took them to court. They won in the end, but they didn't get any no damages, no suing for damages. It just made the contract null and void, which is why we had a renegotiated deal, which was worth half as much for this season. So normally we'd be getting across the whole league 60 million, but we only got 30 million. Once this deal expires for the end of this season, I'm pretty sure, I'd say 90 to 100, between 90 and 100% would be the probability that A-League is going to go away from Foxtel because it's, let's be honest, a dying medium. And
isn't Stan?
It doesn't treat the game with respect, I don't think either.
No.
You look at some of A-League coverage is okay. They've not brought out the same amount of production quality that they used to with, there only being 2 to 3 cameras on match day, even at Macarthur games. And the way they publicize and, broadcast the W League is just atrocious. I mean, there's been some absolute howlers there.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's a camera not working, camera angle not being there, live crossing to someone in the truck doing the
earlier in the year as well, there's that goal in the Wellington game. The feed just completely went static for
exactly,
30 seconds.
Exactly. I mean, how can you call yourself a broadcaster of a league of any standard and say, I missed a goal? Sorry about that. That's just unacceptable. And so with all this, you can say, yep, we should move away from the Foxtel television deal bandwagon. But then where does that leave us financially? So I think it's not necessarily a fact of Macarthur being poor. We're probably just holding back on giving these new deals to players until we know what the lay of the land is in terms of what broadcast revenue can we expect from Football Australia and how can we work it out? Because we may not be able to afford the likes of a Benyat or a Sociedad next season if the broadcast deal is in some different way. We could go to Optus Sport and everything could be hunky-dory. We could have way more money than we ever had under Foxtel through them. But equally,
Well,
we could have this just streaming service that we make ourselves under A-League and just run it in-house and have perhaps no broadcaster revenue or very little. So it could go either way. And I think that's just what clubs are doing. They're just being safe with it.
yeah, supposedly the favourite might be Stan, because I think they got the rugby coverage for Stan recently. But then also Amazon Prime is in the talks as well. And obviously Bezos is loaded with cash. Amazon is huge. So if we're talking about the league needing sort of that cash injection, then potentially Amazon's the way to go. And they're decent, but they have no history in live sports coverage to my knowledge. So
yeah,
a bit risky in that respect. But
it'll be hard to say which way it goes. But the whole thing is, as long as we can secure a future of the league, I mean, at this point, that's all we want. I think that Macarthur, we've got the funds to be able to pay for our players. There's no problem. You look at the amount of community businesses that have bought into the Macarthur 100 Club, and we're well enough funded, I believe, but I can't know that for a fact. However, the league's in a precarious situation, so it makes sense that they're holding off on giving out new contracts. In saying that, some of the people you listed, like Yanni Nicolau, we haven't seen. He's been in NPL 1 for Northbridge Bulls. Same with Walter Scott. These players will be people who Milicic would have wanted to take a look at. And, if they're good enough, then sure, reward them with a contract in the same way that we've done with Lockie Rose and Jake Holman. But some of them will not make it. It's just a fact of the A-League.
Yeah.
If you get to a certain age, that 20 to 22 to 23 years old, and you haven't cracked the first team, then, you're sort of on your way out. And there could be new youngsters coming through.
I think pretty much every team in the league is in the same circumstances as us, with I think each team has over 10 plus players that are out of contract, and majority are those first team sort of players. So we'll see what happens, I suppose.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens there, but we've got our next segment for you, the Macarthur member deals. Now, if you're a Macarthur FC member, you would have had an email land in your inbox yesterday on Wednesday that detailed all the wonderful offers that the club is giving to its members. It's bonus for our members here. So we're going to go through them, and we're going to do a little bit of a tier list. And Daniel, if you want to tell us sort of what you think about whether I've got this right or not, let me know. What tier should it be in? So the first cab off the rank is $5,000 off a new Wisdom home. And I think this is mid-tier because, the average cost of a household in Sydney is just going up and up and up, despite the pandemic and despite the economic issues around at the moment. So, when you look at it, it's less than 10% off your mortgage easily, but every dollar counts. So it's just, mid-tier. What can you do? Moving next to the next one, we've got 10% off a Timpel kitchen. Again, makes sense. They're targeting an area that's growing. We're the fastest growing region in Australia. So obviously more houses being built. You see them go up all the time. 10% off kitchen's not bad. C tier though, because not everyone can afford that.
See, you've got that in C tier, but I had a quick look at their website. They look like they know what they're doing. So I reckon
B tier.
C or B is, I think, right for the Tempelli kitchen. Now, getting into the next one here, by far the worst offer anyone could ever make to their supporters. This is a laughing stock. Free parking on game day at Macarthur Square. Yeah, we're putting that in the pleb tier because that is just like free parking at Mac Square. Like, obviously you got to pay for it, but if you're going to the game, why are you going to Mac Square first? Obviously they have the offers and the deals and the partnership, but park your car at Lemire Station, come to Mac Square via the train, walk into the outside bit, get back on the train, go back to the stadium. You're done.
Yeah.
Then when you finish the game, your car's right there at Lemire Station outside of the stadium. You don't have to get on the train again to go to Mac Square.
Yeah.
Like,
They could be, to be honest, like I know Max Square, they're obviously helping out in some fashion with the fan store because I doubt that necessarily runs a profit. Like the club's surely running it at a loss. But in saying that, you could probably chuck on a bit better deals than like free garlic bread or, second scoop, half price or some shit like that. Like it's no good. It's we need more for that partnership, I think.
They've got the fan area thing where they pull out a massive TV and broadcast the game in the middle of Max Square and the outside section, which is all right, but there's not enough going on.
Yeah, to be fair to Macarthur Square, like that is nice seeing them advertise us and set up the whole outdoor area as they do. That is a good touch. That's really classy and makes the team feel like a part of the region. But yeah, I don't know. Free parking on game day advertised in this email like it's the best thing ever. I mean, no.
Especially compared to what it's up against. Like going into the next one here, 10% off a day at Jamboree. Like, come on.
Yeah. Everyone loves Jamboree. Everyone loves a bit of the, control of the action. A tier for me. I mean, who doesn't love Jamboree? And good on the club.
Even if it is only 10%.
I mean, that'll be brilliant when summer comes around.
Definitely not in this weather. The Taipan is probably flooded.
Yeah, mate.
Is that still
just going for a swim in the Taipan. No sliding whatsoever. The next one, 3 months free property management with McLaren Real Estate. Again, targeting that property market because apparently that's the thing that defines us as an area that we like property. I think that's D tier because really, if you're a supporter of the club, depending on your age, they might be wanting to incentivize like, oh, cool, I can get someone who's a landlord can go, oh, if I'm a member of this club, I get 3 months free real estate, management. But I don't know, it doesn't seem enticing. It doesn't seem like it's really associated with football either. Yeah. And so for me, that lands squarely in D tier.
Sure. Like most of these are surely not advertised to try and steal fans of other teams. Sure. It's
like, no
probably,
way.
Yeah.
No way.
Obviously, it's going to apply to some of the membership holders, but looking at the average age of like the bullpen, for instance, or I mean, a lot of families do have memberships and stuff, but like you feel like they would already be settled and not freshly new like couples that are building houses. Yeah.
I'm very sorry to our listeners. My dog is just going absolutely insane. I'm going to try and sort him out. He hates the rain. Daniel, take us through the rest of the tier list.
Okay. So this is probably the best thing that they have offered in the membership deals here. Friend driving your team to training on the Bulls bus. Now, we've put that in God tier because honestly, like what goes better than Franich just driving the Bulls bus, and you get the boys in the back. You get the experience of an A-League player, a storied A-League player, former Socceroo. Like, what gets better? And another thing here, which we've put in the A tier, is the Macarthur FC School Holiday Clinic, which seeing the School Holiday Clinic, it's always a good thing for the club, the players to get involved, get in front of the kids, autograph signings and such. So
yeah, I think those, sorry, I'm back, guys. Hi. I think those last two offers are actually really great. Like growing up playing in the area for Escal Park, it would have been awesome having Franich pull up and be like, oi, let's go to soccer. That's mad. In terms of the School Holiday Clinic, this is the exact thing that the club should be doing, getting the stars in front of the kids that then go, oh, Mark Milligan taught me how to do a turn, or, Lockie Rose taught me how to cross, right? That gets them in, gets them engaged, gets them interested, gets them, playing in the backyard, pretending to be these people, and then they can go and see them on game day. That's how you grow the club's fan base. And over time, with that sort of, link, that connection to the area, that's going to see it grow with, kids who actually know the players and have that connection and go on. And, then it becomes, when I was your age, I played with this player, and it's like, what? No, you didn't. Right. It's all of these things that's going to create that engagement. And it's the best thing that the club can do. Obviously it won't have an immediate payoff, but down the line, it creates that real connection to the club.
Yeah. That legacy that can build over time.
Yeah.
Which is good.
So I guess that kind of covers it. Overall, you'd say some pretty nice bonuses for members. You'd like to see maybe a bit of merchandise thrown in, but in the same way, it probably disincentivizes people from going to the store. So, that being one of their main revenue streams, you wouldn't want to have that. Makes sense. But, it'd be nice to have a scarf. Anyway.
Moving on. I'd love to hold up a scarf.
Sorry?
I'd love to hold up a scarf.
Yeah.
The whole game, but
yeah, that adds to the atmosphere as well. When Bulls on Parade is playing, hold up a scarf.
I'm not sure if I saw it on the supporters page like a month ago or something. Did someone make their own, or did they?
I think the club had initial, printings of the scarves, and then COVID-19 and, the fact that we were playing in summer, maybe it wasn't the best fit. Maybe they've got them and they're just holding off to release them. We don't know, but there certainly were designs, and there were, I think, either through the official Facebook page or somewhere around there was images of a decent looking scarf. But yeah, it's kind of faded out. I know George Basidovic was presented with one, so we know they have them. So it'd be nice to be able to have that. That'd be mad for winter, especially.
Well, hopefully they get them out before this weekend, where it was meant to piss down when we welcome Western United.
A scarf's not going to help you, mate. Like, it's going to be too wet. But yes, we welcome Western United on Saturday, kickoff at 5:05 p.m. We sort of previewed them not too long ago, so we're not going to be going through exactly how they play. We're more just looking at what we can do to try and rectify the result. We lost 4-1 up against them last time. Personally, I think we'd do well to get a draw with them, if not a win, just given our recent form. But you'd like to see, not necessarily, you're not going to expect a change in the score lines, but you'd expect a better performance from the boys. And that's what we should be looking forward to this week. But before we jump into all of that, we have to let you guys know the Bull Pen has got clearance to march with police escort to the stadium. They're going to go via a route from the beer shed in Lemire at 4:05. They're going to go past Lemire Station and across the newly decorated Northern Footbridge, the yellow one that you walk across if you park across the train line there. Pretty decent that someone decided to chuck a bunch of stickers up there. It looks really cool. And then obviously they're going to arrive at Campbelltown Stadium. So guys, we wanted to let you know, obviously it was being a bit facetious before, but if you are interested, join the march with the Bull Pen and you can get your hands on some stickers from Bull Banter. We're just handing them out. It's not for profit. It's just to support the club. And we've got heaps to hand out. So be down there and get some freebies.
Yep. 100%.
In saying that, let's jump into the very tiny preview of Western United. Very simply, I've put here, we need to be better than before. I think, did we come off? Yeah, we came off the 4-0 victory against Adelaide and, we were riding high and then we got brought back to reality from Western United when we played them in Ballarat.
Completely.
We need to do better this time, Dan.
Yeah, just off the bat, I wouldn't be too mad if we lost this game. I just want to see us play some good football. Obviously, the most I'm anticipating from this is probably a draw. But if we can play well, then I'm not going to care what the result is. Just because we've had 2 bad games where we haven't really been able to put it together. So I just like to see that we have it. But that being said, that being said, first round against Western United, our fullbacks were really exploited. So I'd like to see us shore that up. If Meredith can come back into the side, I don't know why he was missing out of the Melbourne City game. I don't know if he still was suffering from that injury against Western United last time or not, but he's obviously going to give us a lot more reassurance at left back compared to the likes of Golek. I think we need to, when they work it into the likes of what's old mate's name now? Guaxarena, yeah, and Diamanti, yeah, Guaxarena and Diamanti. When they sort of check in from the ball from the left or right side, if we can stick with them and get numbers in and amongst them, turn them the other way, not let them just roam free in the midfield like they want to, and I think we'll go a long way to playing well. We just need to defensively not overcommit too much, and it starts in the midfield of being a bit more lively than we have been in recent weeks.
Yeah, it's everyone's responsibility to turn up. I mean, yeah, I think regardless of how the boys play, it'll just be nice to have football back in Campbelltown. We've gone a month without it. The last time we saw him play at home was, I believe, up against Adelaide. So it's been a while, and it was a good night, even though it was pissing down with rain, and I was drenched and I had lost my voice. It was still a fantastic time, one of the best times I've had in a stadium. So hopefully, with a bit of decent active support, and hopefully quite a few get down there despite what is probably going to be some pretty poor conditions. Hopefully we can get behind the boys and spur them on, because we, regardless of if you're an active supporter or just a fan who sits in the stands, you're the 12th man of this team, and we want this club to succeed, and so you should get down and support the boys for sure. Personally, I'm predicting a 2-1 loss, but like you said, I just want to have that bit of competitive nature about us. We need a bit of mongrel, but yeah, apart from that, if we can jag a draw or a win, maybe it starts to turn our season around a little bit, and we can start to get a bit of positivity back in the side, because it's been rough. It's been a rough week to be a Macarthur supporter, to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of people on social media saying that we're by far the most boring team to watch in the A-League and stuff like that. And it'd be nice if we can put together another performance worthy of at least getting a draw here. I'd like to see us be as sort of divisive and put together like we were against Adelaide in that second half, when we sort of just ran riot on them. But we've been lacking that energy, definitely, the last 3 games. So, I'm going to predict, I'm going to say a 1-1, I think. But wouldn't be surprised if we... it's not a confident draw. That's why I'd be surprised if we get a draw, but I think Western United will get the better of us.
There's too many Westerns. Just wait till you verse Perth, mate. Like, you'll be so confused.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think we could make it close, but it all depends on how we turn up. If we have that energy, Western United are the kind of team with a grub of a coach in Mark Rudan and some other, players who think they're top shit. We can get under their skin if we turn up and really put it on them, especially with how they've been playing lately, having beat Brisbane and then narrowly losing to Western Sydney. I think they'll feel like they've got the better of us, especially after last time. And so if we put it on them, we could surprise them here and really upset them.
I think the way we can hurt them is we just need to back ourselves defensively to get the job done.
Yeah.
Because then when their wing backs push high and get beyond our sort of midfield, if we can force a turnover and hit wide early, then theoretically we should have a 3-on-3 at the very least, with midfield runners coming through.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that will play out, since that's not usually our game plan to sort of get a quick turnover and go with it. But I think if we go into the game looking as lethargic as we have with the ball in possession, then it'll just be another ruined match week for us.
Yeah, but there's hope. I mean, we've had a good rest. Us not playing since last Friday night would have done us a world of good. We're back at home. Everyone's feeling good. Time for renewal, and hopefully a decent crowd in, and we should be hopeful for that decent result. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really do appreciate your stewardship on this podcast. Make sure you get down at 4:05 for the march with the bullpen, and you can receive some free stickers from Bull Banter, courtesy of us. Make sure you follow us on social media. That's your Facebook, Instagram, and we're also at bullbanter.com. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on Saturday. Go you Bulls.